Actually, I could use that, to be honest, because this weird.
My wife does a good job with that.
Yeah, I tried the accounts.
Adam will be here in like 20 minutes, 25 probably. Oh,
I didn't get the memo, the word of black.
Hey, Brent.
I had it. That's right.
All right, you got your cell phones. Put them on mute,
Please.
please. Thank you.
okay.
6 o'clock striking.
It is. The bell is for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for us.
I'm getting by.
That must be nice.
So, where's Ross? Oh,
All right, well, welcome everyone to the July 27th meeting of the Xenia City Council. Before we start the council, I'll just ask everybody to please stand, and I'll go ahead and lead us in a prayer for our meeting tonight, if we could. Father, we thank you that even though many times things in our own lives may seem a little out of control, everything is under your domain and under your control. And we thank you that, God, you've ordained families for us. You've ordained the church and local fellowships, and you've ordained government as well. And we thank you, Father, that the government as well as these other institutions are under your domain as well, too. So, Father, help us be good stewards tonight with our time and with the decisions that we make. Help us to lean hard on your wisdom. And we thank you that we have an opportunity to come and be together and do things that are for the benefit of our city, Father. Just praise things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please remain standing. We'll face the American flag, and the mayor will lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Vice President Smith, Councilman Scrivens,
here.
Councilwoman Dean, Councilman Branham,
Here.
Councilman Dean,
Here.
Mayor Mays,
Here.
President Urschel.
Here. I had talked earlier with Councilman Smith is on vacation this week with his family, and he asked to be excused. And Councilwoman Dean also contacted me earlier this week and said she had another pressing obligation, asked to be excused. So I'd like to make a motion that we excuse both of these council people. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Scrivens. Let's call the vote.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Branham,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Urschel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Next item is approval of the July 13th, 2023 minutes. Have a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Brandon. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Dean. Any questions or comments before we vote? All right, let's call the vote.
Councilman Scrivens,
Aye.
Councilman Branham,
Aye.
Councilman Dean,
Aye.
Mayor Mays,
Aye.
President Urschel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. We have no special presentations this evening. Next item is audience comments. You have an opportunity if you'd like to address the council. Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you got 3 to 5 minutes to let us know what's on your mind.
All right, my name's Clayton Brady, 370 Hollywood Boulevard, Xenia, Ohio. And again, I see the improvements all over town, and I want to thank the commission on that. I know some people are upset that there's things going on in their front yard, but that they, a lot of people don't have patience to see progress, but I'm the one that does have patience, and I appreciate the things you're doing up there at Lexington Park. And I'm just up here to, we have 9 things on the list, and it's like maybe 4 more things that need to be done. One, the president just mentioned the water being turned on. Okay, we got water fountains, so let's turn on the water. One, fencing around the court, bleachers, grills, and walking paths. And I know this is a process,
Yeah.
And I figured out the process as long as I've been in it, a year and a half. But I just want to extend thanks and continue to serve the town, the whole town, and not just part of the town. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Clayton.
Curtis Simons, 3800 Wheat Grain Lane, Fairfax, Virginia. First of all, I want to just thank the council. I just came back in for the last few days, was able to see the improvements as we've been working slowly but surely. And I just want to thank you for all the hard work that the whole team has put together in doing that. A couple of things that I did notice when I went past the park today that I think I would ask, I'd shoot it all over to Brian and see if he can kind of correct them for me. Number one, we had a great job setting up new poles and backboards, but they set the rims too high. They're set at 10.5 when they should be at 10 foot. So we need to get the rims adjusted down to 10 foot and not be at 10.5. So I'll talk to Brian on that and see if we can get the adjustments on, which is a small adjustment. Secondly, great lining job of lining the courts for us, but I would ask the commission to think about in 24 if we could get that resurfaced. There's still a lot of cracks on the court. It's playable. But it'd be nice if we could refresh that all the way around in 24. If we could put that down as one of the things that we'd like to see the council look at. I think Clayton mentioned some things that we need to finish up on. I can say to the council, we have been in a fundraising mode, and we are raising money on our own side, and we've raised almost about $4,000 right now. Our goal is to, as I told Brett early on, is to pay for the bleachers. We will, the Lexington Park Group will pay for the bleachers. Working with Brett to pay, figuring out how we can assist also on the fencing. We've had quite a few comments from the community. I think one of the things I would recommend to think about moving forward, they have, I don't know, many of you probably don't do it, and I shouldn't do it, but I'm always having to be on it, is Facebook. And they have an Eastern, Xenia East Coast line or whatever it is around the East End. And there was many complaints on it, because they're not engaged. They're not engaged. They don't know what you guys are doing. They see a little bit of it, and people are still saying they're not doing enough. Well, in my opinion, you're doing a lot. So and I tell people, you can't complain about things if you're not going to put efforts to it. Talk is cheap. It's about coming here, which we've been able to do, Clayton and the group, and explain why we need certain things. And we know, as Clayton just laid out, it's not going to happen overnight. I've lived here my life. I know how things roll. You got other things to do other than just Lexington Park. We appreciate the time and effort. But I would just say that as we move into 24, is we can work together to try to fit. Because one of the things that we'd like to do is going into 24, we want to have September 9th. We're going to do a fundraising event at the park. We're going to bring up some teams to play in it, try to use it as a fundraising step to begin to get the knowledge out there of what we're trying to do. A lot of people complain about why weren't we included in it. Well, the city had an open night. No one the right people who's complaining didn't show up that night, and give us suggestions. So I have a little pity on that situation. I would just say that, again, thank you. We appreciate it. Brett's done a great job. I'm glad to see you healthy again. I'm glad to see you back. With all them kids, man. I know it keeps you busy. But we just want to try to get next year at 24. We really like to get rolling on some events and stuff happening, but we will try to kick it off September 9th at Lexington Park, and you'll hear more about it. One last thing I just want to leave you with is that one of the things we've talked to Brett early on that I think is very, very important moving forward. One is that developing some history on Lexington Park. On a visual side that we can have show up on the screen here where people can look at your channel and see some of the history that is going on. Because I don't think people really realize some of the history that really came through Lexington Park basketball-wise. I constantly say this every time I'm here. Xenia High School championships in basketball were not won just on Xenia High School floors. They were won at Lexington Park. And some of the greats who have played there, either that they didn't make it at Xenia High School, but some of even the street yard greats that made a platform for that. And one of the things that we want to try to initiate we want to try to kick it off somewhat on September 9th, is a Lexington Park Walk of Fame. And the Walk of Fame would be where we could work with the city on developing steps that would have players' names, almost like a Hollywood type thing. So when people come to the park, they can see some of the greats who play. Either they played at high school, some of them didn't play high school, but they were greats at Lexington Park. They were well known at Lexington Park. And if you go to any other park, Rutgers, you go to any other parks around the country, you'll see the guys who laid the path for others to come in. And we want to try to emulate that same look at Lexington Park. So I just want to say thank you and look forward to continue working with you.
Yeah, great, thank you. Good. Anyone else like to address the council? Okay. Next item is old business. The first item is a ordinance 2023-20. This will be a public hearing tonight. Levying assessments for the improvement of city streets and public ways by the lighting thereof within Street Lighting District Number 4. That's the Eden Ridge subdivision for the years 2024 through 2027. This was introduced by Councilman Scrivens on 7/13/2023. And so before we take a motion on that, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time. If anyone has any comments that you would like to make about this ordinance, either in favor or against, or just some observations, please feel free to come to the podium at this time and address the council. Okay, well, we have no comments, so we're going to go ahead and close that public hearing. Councilman Scrivens,
Mr. President, I'd like to move for passage.
do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Second, great. Brent, you want to just, before we vote on that, just refresh us again on this?
Yeah, this is the last step in the process to implement a streetlight assessment for, that would be assessment district number 4 for the Eden Bridge subdivision. Again, this would authorize the implementation of the assessment, moving forward with the lights. And this is as you are required to do in order to implement this, and this came at the request of the developer.
Great, okay. Any questions from council members before we vote?
Just one thing, Mr. President.
Sure, go ahead,
Has
Councilman
Eden Bridge been annexed yet, or?
They are in the city, yeah. It was a prior annexation done a number of years ago, and work is commencing out there quite nicely.
Yes.
Yeah, I was by there today, as a matter of fact. Some nice residences
What's
being
going up?
constructed.
Great,
Thank you, Mr. President.
sure. All right, let's call the vote.
Point of order, you need to have a public hearing for this item.
We did.
Oh, you did?
We just did.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, what's
My
that?
apologies.
That's okay.
Wasn't paying
It
attention.
was quick, I didn't do
It
the
was
gavel.
quick.
We did the public hearing.
Councilman Scrivens.
Aye.
Councilman Branham.
Aye.
Councilman Dean.
Aye.
Mayor Mays.
Aye.
President Urschel.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Now we're going to move on to new business. The first item is a emergency ordinance, ordinance 2023-21, amending ordinance 2023-17 to provide appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of Xenia, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023, and declaring an emergency. And Mr. Finance Director, you want to give us an overview of this, please?
Sure, thank you, Council President. There are 3 items that we're requesting additional appropriations for this evening. The first is related to witnesses who are subpoenaed who would travel a good distance. Right now, the court is only required to pay $12 per day for a witness to travel, and if it's certainly a witness from out of state or someone who would require some lodging, they're gonna most certainly spend more than that on fuel to get here.
Right.
And so we think that it's appropriate for the city to appropriate some dollars to cover some of those costs. And so the law director, Ms. Fisher, has asked that $1,000 be appropriated for this purpose. It's not something that happens routinely or on a regular basis, but when it does, we'd like to have some dollars available for that purpose.
Sure.
So that's the first item. The second is related to refunds paid back to developers who have basically paid a deposit when they're going to open up the street. There's a lot more development happening throughout the city, and so when someone pulls a permit and they're going to do work that requires them to cut into a street, they're required to pay a deposit, and that deposit ensures that the street is repaired appropriately. We need to appropriate some dollars to refund back those fees that are paid, deposits that are paid by developers. And a lot of times there's an issue because they may pay the fee in one year and it's refunded in another. And so
Right.
we're requesting that $15,000 be appropriated in that refund line for this purpose. These aren't tax dollars that are being appropriated. It's simply really a formality. It's something that we need to appropriate in the budget so we can refund back those fees that are being paid by developers when they've repaired the street. back to the city specifications. And then the final item is a request for $750,000 to be appropriated for rehab of the ladder truck. This is an item that has been in the 5-year capital plan. We were planning to bring this next year, or for this to be in the budget next year, but we are requesting that we move up that appropriation. The primary reason is just the length of time that it's taking to get anything done. And so even if we enter into a contract now, it's likely that we won't pay this $750,000 this year, but we need to appropriate it and have it encumbered in order for the work to proceed, and that's to enter into a contract, all those types of things. And I think the city manager, the fire chief, thought it was important for us to get the ball rolling on this rehab. And so we're requesting that $750,000 be appropriated this year, and then obviously it'll be removed from the CIP and the budget for '24. So those are the three items that we're requesting tonight. We're of course requesting the ordinance be passed as an emergency, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about any of those items.
Great, thanks so much. Do I have a motion for this? Anyone have some discussion?
I'll move as an emergency.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second, thanks.
I do have
Moved by the mayor and then second by Councilman Branham. Go ahead.
just for the public's awareness, how much is a normal ladder truck if you were to purchase it brand new versus the refurbishment?
Our most recent estimate is in the $1.25 to $1.5 million range. So we can extend the life of this vehicle, we think, another 10 to 15 years by spending half of that, but as I've suggested to council previously, I do think, or we estimate, that the actual price will be much lower than this, but this was an early estimate, so we want to make sure that we have enough prepared, and we'll follow up with council to give you an indication of what we think that actual contractual amount will be. And of course, we'll be back to council with an agenda item to move forward with that once we get the specs completed and have a contract ready to execute.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman Scrivens.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Finance Director, are we not just authorizing the $750,000 tonight? We're not actually appropriating it tonight, are we?
No, what you would be doing tonight is actually appropriating the dollars in the budget, but to Mr. Marin's point, if we were to execute a contract, obviously it's going to exceed bid thresholds, and that would come back to council for you to approve the work to be done with that vendor. There is some other work that wasn't appropriated that is going to be done on this ladder truck that I think was the result of an accident, and so some of this will probably be used for that as well, to make sure we've got money to facilitate that. It's being reimbursed by insurance, the vast majority of it, but this is just appropriating the money, and then the actual contract would come back to council for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, just to add on to a little bit of what Mr. Deek was saying previously, we've elected to move forward with this in large part because the estimated, but going through the process of getting the specs written, getting a contract before council, getting approval, the lead time necessary to have the materials that are being replaced as part of the refurbishment fabricated, installed. The truck is completely overhauled from engine to hydraulic system, electronic system, repainted, etc. We think it'll be a year. It'll be out of service for probably 8 months, and it'll be about a year from now before it will be back in service. So given that the vehicle has been out of service pending some current repairs on some damage, it felt prudent to go ahead and get this process started. The lead time on these materials is not getting any better at this point. So we just want to get this thing updated, get it back in service for good, and put it in the rearview mirror, so to speak. So, sorry.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's go ahead and call the vote.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Branham?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
Aye.
Mayor Mays?
Aye.
President Urschel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Next item is an introduction of an ordinance 2023-22, amending sections 450.01, 450.06, 450.10, 452.08, and 452.10 of Title 8 Parking of the City of Xenia Traffic Code. Madam Law Director.
Thank you, sir. As you know, Title 8 contains all of the city's parking regulations. Most of the regulations that we have in that title are based on state law. They actually mirror the Ohio Revised Code. There were some recent changes made pursuant to House Bill 281 and then the state's biannual budget bill. So these changes are to bring those sections of Title 8 that are based on state law up to speed with where state law currently is. The biggest changes to state law, they're not substantive changes, it's more terminology. Under state law, handicap parking is no longer called handicap parking. It's now called accessible parking. And the phrase handicap person has been changed to person with a disability. So sections 450.01, 450.06, 450.10, and 452.08, those are the changes in those sections, just changing that terminology to mirror state law. The final section, 452.10, this is a city-specific parking regulation. This amendment actually comes at the request of the police division. They have run into numerous issues with overly large vehicles being parked on city streets. That tends to become a real problem in some of our older neighborhoods where the streets are narrower. So those amendments will allow for the parking of the larger pickup trucks on streets while prohibiting semis, box trucks, RVs, buses, any vehicle that has more than 2 axles on the city streets. So those are the changes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great. Any questions for the law director? Okay, who would like to introduce that ordinance tonight? All right, that'll be introduced by Councilman Scrivens. Next item is also an introduction of an ordinance 2023-23. This is approving a major change to the concept plan for the 11.396 acre planned unit development at 441, 457, and 469 Dayton Avenue. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. I do want to give a little more detailed introduction as this property has been subject to a lot of kind of discussion in the past. The subject development is located adjacent to the intersection of Dayton Avenue and North Allison Avenue. Has seen several iterations of proposed redevelopment over the years. The parcels are part of a PUD that was approved most recently by City Council via Ordinance 2018-21. The property was once the Green Park Plaza Shopping Center, though today it contains just 2 buildings adjacent to Dayton Avenue that house Community Action Partnership and Dollar General. Ordinance 2018-21 authorized a PUD concept plan that envisioned a 1.25 acre commercial lot east of Dollar General and a 50-unit development of 2, 3, and 4-unit residential buildings at the rear of the site. That development never moved given limitations of the local market at the time. The new proposal is submitted on behalf of Idaho-based builder Visser Building Company. This development proposal involves a significantly higher residential density, removal of the 1.25 acre commercial lot, and appears to be based on market rate leasable housing options. The project would include 109 2-story rental townhomes in 15 buildings that contain 5 to 8 units each. The project also proposes a clubhouse and a 0.75 acre central private open space area. The townhomes will front on internal private drives with sidewalks and adjacent parking spaces, some of which will be covered carports. 8 to 10 storage buildings are proposed and would be available for use by residents of the development. The development will generally wrap around the adjacent retail facility and contain 2 entrances, one at Dayton Avenue, North Allison Avenue intersection, that primary intersection, and another at the existing former shopping center entrance to the east of that Dollar General parcel. The project applicant has submitted 2 alternative concept plans for approval. We want to be clear about this because the applicant hopes to conduct a land exchange with CAP to approve the overall layout. Because the land exchange has not been finalized, the applicant requests approval for the 2 plans, one involving the land exchange and one without the land exchange. The land exchange option would reorient an existing parking area adjacent to the main entrance and provide an access and parking easement to CAP, increase its amount of available parking. In exchange, the applicant would acquire a tract north of CAP and place a 6-unit townhome building in that location. Without the land exchange, the applicant would instead place a 6-unit townhome building adjacent to the main entrance and add 2 storage buildings north of CAP. This site has been the subject of prior proposals and at times some pushback from local residents. Despite its history, the site presents opportunity for a positive addition and housing options for our community, and redevelopment of the site and investment in the site would definitely improve the overall conditions of that area. Planning and Zoning Commission held the required public hearing on July 12th to consider the proposal and subsequently voted to recommend that council approve the proposed major changes to the concept plan. And again, this would include both plan options given whatever outcome on the land swap would occur. The development of the PUD will proceed according to the concept plan with council's approval. Standards have been met in this particular case. So staff is presenting this evening, recommending introduction of the ordinance and consideration of the proposal. And I think there's an opportunity to see improvement here.
Great. I just make a comment. I know sometimes people are fearful when they hear about rental properties coming in, but this is much more along the lines of no. I'd say this is our Deer Creek, but it's not called that now. What's our
Xenia Trails.
Xenia Trails along that line? And Brian, I think when we talked earlier today, it was the square footage was around 1,000 to 1,200 square feet, depending upon which of the models, which is the size of many of the homes in the city. 2.5 baths, and I mean, I think it'll be a great addition. It's a market niche that we really don't have this type of housing available right now. And I'll tell you, if you go over to Beaver Creek Township or Beaver Creek or Centerville, this is a lot of what's been coming in those areas too. So yeah, is that a fair statement, Brett?
Yeah, in fact, I was about to make that statement, so I would just reiterate that, you know, we do need diversity of housing in our community, and you know, we have our fair share of rentals, and certain classifications of rentals in our community, I think, are a problem. You know, where we've seen single-family neighborhoods where properties, many of them have been converted to rentals rather than owner-occupied. That is definitely a problem in our community, and I think it's something that we've talked with council from a policy perspective that we want to try to discourage and instead encourage owner-occupied.
Right.
However, market rate rentals, you know, that really target demographics that are of great value to our community, young professionals who aren't ready for the home ownership experience. You know, the market conditions have changed, and we don't have the diversity of housing that we need in our community to attract a diverse audience of residents. So this type of option, we're seeing a lot of interest from outside development firms for these types of product because they just simply aren't available in any significant number in our community.
Right. And we've had some discussion about trying to tap into the base and the base employment, especially with the base bringing on literally thousands of new young professionals, college graduates coming in. They're not looking to buy a home for their first couple of years. They're looking for this type of property, and with the easy accessibility of 35 there to get to and from the base, and the shopping area there and stuff, this will be a prime target for that group. So, okay, who'd like to introduce this ordinance tonight? Councilman Scrivens will do the introduction. Thank you.
Also, Mr. President, if I
Yes.
could, I'm impressed with this development because it's a space that we could fill in and we could get a highest and best use for.
Right.
Whereas right now, we don't, and we're not doing what we need to do. When we put this development in, we are definitely stepping up in terms of providing good, affordable housing.
Right. Right.
And this is just tremendous. So I'm definitely all for this one.
Right. And as you said too, obviously there'll be some roads that we'll be acquiring within that.
We talked about this earlier.
Yeah, but
In this case, these will be private roads.
Right, and they'll be maintained privately, the roads?
right. So we're getting the additional housing without the cost of the long-term maintenance of the infrastructure. So right.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
One side note on this, though, is that area has been utilized by the high school pretty heavily for sports, and especially as well as the Xenia football.
Ancillary parking.
Right, that team's been doing lately. That's has been used as hundreds of spaces for parking during that time. And I've mentioned to the the Xenia Community School Board that that's not going to be available to them, and we've offered some other options, at least this year at the town square, to do some parking. There's
Parking
still lots of
lot.
parking there. It's well lit, and they can do some shuttle service, and there's some other locations there too. As part of their stadium upgrade plan, they are also proposing a parking study that's being accomplished as well too. So, and Brent, you want to say something else?
Yeah, I would just add, I think there is proposed as part of the plan that we've reviewed for that, another, is it 100 or 120 spaces? Brian, you want to give some input on that? Recognizing the very issue that you're bringing up, Mr. President, that there's woefully insufficient parking for the larger events at that stadium.
Right.
Yeah, when Cox Elementary School was originally built, they had already planned an expansion of that lot. With the stadium expansion, they're adding another section as well. I don't have the exact number of spaces, but it will be a significant increase of what they have. And they're also, as a condition of their zoning permit for that stadium, they are required to build all of that parking and also formalize any off-property agreements that they have, because really in the past this has been done very informally, just handshake agreements. But I know they're currently pursuing an agreement with Xenia Plaza, among other potential properties, to get formal parking sharing agreements in place. So, and they have basically a year to do that. So
sure. Great, thanks, Brian.
Mr. President, that'll short circuit a lot of consternation when we have home games, when you hear the announcement that
move your cars before they're towed.
Yeah, that's just terrible. That's terrible.
Right.
So it's good that we have that coming in.
Great. All right. Next item was also an introduction. This is ordinance 2023-24. Accepting the annexation of 10.103 acres of land in the Xenia Township, 1164 Stevenson Road, to the city of Xenia, Ohio. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, sir. The Board of Greene County Commission approved Justin and Caitlin Marshburn's petition for annexation of the subject property there off of Stevenson Road from the township to the city. This was effective April 20th. The clerk of the Board of County Commissioners sent a certified record of the annexation proceedings to the city on May 15th. In accordance with ORC 709.04, after the expiration of 60 days from the date of the record of proceedings is received from the county, at its next regular session, at your next regular session, the annexation is to be presented to council for approval or rejection. The council has 120 days to accept or reject annexation. If no action is taken in that time, the annexation is considered rejected pursuant to statute. As council will recall, the Marshburns requested provision of city water service to their property at 1164 Stevenson Road. Council approved an extraterritorial service agreement with the Marshburns on December 15th. That agreement was executed and required the Marshburns to seek annexation of the land at that property. They have fulfilled this contractual requirement, and the county approved the annexation, and so it is now the recommendation of staff that you move forward, as was, I think, council's original intent, and accept the annexation of the property. And for the purpose of that, this evening we're just seeking introduction of that process.
Great. Any other questions for the city manager? All right, I'd like to move for introduction.
So moved.
Moved by the mayor. Thank you. All right, that concludes our new business. Next item is the appointed official reports. We'll start off with our finance director.
I have nothing else this evening.
Okay. Brian, thanks for the financial update this month. Sure. Great. Madam Law Director.
I have nothing else this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. Anyone from the council have any questions for our finance director or law director? Okay. Mr. City Manager.
Everything I have will be discussed in a roundtable.
Great. Yes, I just let folks know after the conclusion of our, we will have an executive session. At the conclusion of that, we're going to have a work session. It'll be after that. We have a number of items to go over with the council. We made a decision a few months ago to always have a work session on the second meeting of the month. So we'll have some more items to go over. That too is a public meeting. If you'd like to stick around and be part of that, feel free to do that. We do take minutes of those meetings. Okay. Any questions for the city manager? Brian, how you feeling?
We're getting there.
Okay.
On the road to recovery.
Brian had surgery on his shoulder earlier this week, and Appreciate you coming and gritting it out to be with us tonight.
There's no place I'd rather be.
All right. So nobody slap Brent on the shoulder tonight on the way out, please. Let's not do that.
The
Okay.
one-arm band.
That's right. That's right.
Medication.
All right. Next item is council comments and reports. We'll start with Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few items. Glad to see Mr. Brady and Mr. Simons here, pressing the flesh to keep Lexington Park in the forefront of redevelopment. See Doug Adams Stadium is making significant improvements. See they dropped the press box in the other day, and it's just good to see dirt turning in Xenia and just development. It's just a good thing to come down the street and have to wait because you see development. So I don't mind waiting for development. I'm a patient man. So possibly we were talking about Lexington Park getting resurfaced. Maybe we got out in front of ourselves. We should have sealed it first before we striped it. Just a point of fact. The fundraising for September the 9th, I'm just interested to see where people are going to park when we have the fundraiser. There's currently about 15 to 20 actual parking spaces. And then from that point, it'll be a park and walk because one street's only 15 feet wide and the other street's no parking on either side. So that'll be something I can wait to see. Other than that, Mr. President, just want to say that we had such a great weekend with our fireworks, the artwork. Had one comment, well, why do we have this? Because it's art. Art is something that you either appreciate or you don't. So, we're going to spend the money and we're going to have artwork. So that's that. Just waiting to see all of the other developments take shape there. We just anxious to see the next grand opening. It's just nice to see Xenia stepping up.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Great. Thanks, Tommy. Cody?
Yeah, just wanted to be noted that city did not spend any funds on the paintings at Shawnee Park.
Correct.
So just so that everybody's aware. I don't want people to get in a tizzy about that.
Right.
On Monday, July 24, 2023, BZA met. We heard one case. It was a variance to allow a detached garage to be built 6 foot 1 inch from a rear west lot line and 8 foot 6 inches from a side north lot line, instead of the required minimum 10 foot for the property located at 316 Antrim Road, filed by Ohio Valley Property Management LLC. That was passed. It was an instance where a fire had actually taken that structure down. It's a little odd, but our code, if a natural disaster or a fire or that sort of thing happens, they have to jump back through the wickets of going through BZA to get approval to rebuild it.
To rebuild, yeah.
So I recommend that anybody that has something like that happen, leave as much of your structure there. Don't clean it up until you kind of go back through the wickets to rebuild your structure versus, completely leveling it off. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cody. Councilman Dean?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything else to add.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Just a couple things. I had an opportunity to meet with Daniel Tryon, the president of Soin and Green, on the 17th, and just talk through some.
Soin and Green, not Soylent Green, right? Just checking.
Soin and Green. Thank you, from Kettering Health. Tuesday, July 25th. And if you want to, I'm sure we'll touch on this in the work session. Had an opportunity with you and the judge to meet and just talk through some long-term goals with the courts. On the 27th, today, had a meeting with CSU along with the law director, city manager, and assistant city manager. Again, we'll probably get into that in the work session. That's really all. I've been out of town a couple times and had several offline chats and met for quite a few people this week for coffee just to continue to push some things through, but nothing else official on the calendar. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you. Last Friday, I had a chance to represent us at the not ribbon cutting, but it was a ribbon tying ceremony out at the fish pantry, and really what they were celebrating was the process of us of us acquiring that property from the county and anticipation of that passing on to the folks at the pantry. Really well attended. Once again, I just want to commend the county on their willingness to dedicate a facility that, you know, we probably could have found a lot of other uses for, but this is a really critical one, you know, in terms of feeding folks in the county. And the folks at the pantry are just amazing there. And it was just good to be there to hear the feedback from folks in the community, the folks that work there, just about how much fun it is to participate, to walk alongside your fellow citizens in a time of need and do that. So just a good day all around to be able to do that. Once again, I'm amazed going by Troney Brothers every day. They are packed out, and just really excited about the brothers coming in and getting the restaurant open there on 2nd Street at the old Xenia China Inn. And it's interesting. On Mondays, they are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and there's a constant stream of vehicles coming in. We've had the folks from Bridges out there doing a lot of lot cleanup and painting and things like that. And it's just a constant stream of folks saying, "Hey, we're here to eat." And we said, "No, they're not here." And so people shake their heads, but they come back the other nights. So just a great addition here to our community. Also want to say, really appreciated the time that Judge McNamee made to meet with Sarah and I. And we had some good discussion about a number of items. We'll get into that during our work session there. And looking forward to continuing to work on that. Just a reminder to folks on council, we have our day-long work session coming up on August 5th. That's next
Week from Saturday.
It's a week from Saturday, right? So we've got a little bit of time there. As far as I know, everybody on council will be able to attend that, and looking forward, we have a number of strategic items we're going to be going over and addressing. So we're giving ourselves a full day on that Saturday to do that. So I appreciate the staff coming and being with us during that time as well too. So kudos to everybody for that. That's all I've got for this evening. Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm out of order, but
No, go ahead, Council.
If you beg your indulgence, just wanted to say that there was an article in the Xenia Daily Gazette, I think it was last Friday, if I'm not mistaken, and the lead story, 10-point print, was referenced to you, and it kind of exclaimed that you had certain attributes to a publication regarding the avionics that you've been working on for I don't know how many years, and just want to say that what you've done for the country, we appreciate, and what you've done for us, we appreciate. So it's a pleasure to serve beside you.
Thanks, Thomas.
And God bless you.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people have fond memories of college. I don't, because I crammed 6 years of college into 4, and my 4 years working on the F-35, I think I crammed 10 years of work into 4 as well too. But the air show this year, which is over the weekend, we had some F-35s out there flying, and that's pretty amazing. And I was reminding myself 10 years ago, we were on the verge of literally canceling that program, and that, to a large extent, was the hope of air dominance for us for this generation. And right now, there's over 600 aircraft flying in 14 different nations, and it's going to ensure the air dominance for the United States and our partner nations as well, probably in the next 20 or 30 years as well too. So I don't do that work anymore. Cody's out there fighting a good fight for us with this generation. And I will say there's quite a number of other residents here in Xenia that are participating not only in the sustainment of those programs, but in the development of a whole series of new weapon systems. And what goes on at Wright Pat is extraordinary. We are unmatched in terms of air power by anyone in the world. That really has to do with the hard work and dedication of a lot of folks that are at the base right now, and a lot of folks who are in our Xenia community right now that many times do things people don't get to know about as well too. So thanks Tommy. Appreciate that. All right, at this time I'm going to ask that we move into executive session. This is with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G, which has to do the discussion of or purchase or sale of property. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Can I head and call the vote there?
Who was that second? I'm sorry.
Second by Councilman Scrivens.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Scrivens?
Aye.
Councilman Brandon?
Aye.
Councilman Dean?
All right.
Mayor May? President Urschel?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. For those of you in the audience, we are going to go into executive session this time. Brandon, how long do you think we'll be there?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. So you're welcome, if you'd like to stick around, all are welcome to the work session afterwards. But depending on what kind of discussion we have, we'll be in that, and then we'll come back into the work session at that point. So, all right, let's take a couple minutes here, 5 minutes, and then we'll get started with the executive session. Brandon, are we gonna?